Yeah, so hey guys, my name is Omar Samara. I'm a third year PhD student in biological systems engineering. My research focuses on agricultural adaptation to climate change, kind of specifically something we call agrivoltaics, which is the idea of putting solar panels over crops. Um, and that's like a very brief summary because it's very complicated. But it is my privilege and honor to introduce you guys Dr. Sam Sandoval. Dr. Sam Sandoval is an assistant professor and cooperative extension specialist in the Department of Land, Water, and Air Resources. One of the things which I think he really brings to the conversation when we talk about climate change is sort of the very broad uh, like view of climate change and understanding that it's not just like the technical side of like, okay, well, can we get green energy to just some to some level that we want, or could we like make all these things work, because it's not just the technical component. There's also a massive social component behind it. There's also a massive political component, and bringing all these things together is really what's going to bring real change to fighting environmental injustice. And as far as injustice goes, Dr. Sandoval also has that perspective of understanding that we run the risk of this sort of just becoming very Western centric or very Eurocentric, and sort of like rich white people sort of take advantage and take all the benefits, and we just ignore a lot of historically disenfranchised groups. And so Sam has this really really holistic perspective, which I think is very important. Even if water is not your interest, just having this sort of framework and seeing like, okay, we need to look beyond just the raw technical calculations if we want to actually fight climate change. um, and I think that's everything I want to say, and then I'll just pass it over to Sam.
Yeah, and this one will be perhaps no pressure after that introduction. So let me actually, I think I want to take it from there, from what Omar mentions, and let me share with you some thoughts. Um, I strongly recommend you that some of you read a couple of books. So one of those I think that it will be really good is Cadillac Desert or The Great Thirst. Um, and basically, those two will definitely put you in the context of how we got here, guys, because we got here actually as an afterthought. The other one that I just already put it on the chat, is this documentary that is called A Power Trip. Um, these people that you're seeing here, I know them pretty well. They've colleagues, and it is interesting how we got it, or how we start getting this part of water and energy together. And to be more honest, energy was an afterthought. And sometimes energy, if you were thinking about energy and water, that was a maneuvering to actually make projects economically viable. So let me go back to that portion of it, and then um, the expansion of the West, and we have the Desert Land Act, the Homestead Act, and all the things. So people from the East going into the West. Okay, and as people are going there, the reality is that it was more about uh, water for food. It wasn't water for energy. So that's everyone kind of running towards the West. And then the other thing is that if you think of the East, and if you think most of the part of the world except this portion where we are, the reality is that we are in a singularity. When I say a singularity, is that um, we have a drought every 6 months. It doesn't rain, and, and again, look outside and you have the clear blue sky of California, and you see that on the pictures. Some of you that you're actually not from here, you see that in the pictures, and you're like, huh. I mean, they should have put it in somewhere else. No, it is the clear blue sky of California. So people moved in here, and as they were moving, they were thinking more in agriculture. And the first thing that they encountered, it was this dichotomy of water on and off. You have water, you don't have water. during the same year, and pretty much coming from places that it used to rain all year long. So they got here, start doing these reservoirs, and then uh, we have pretty much some suspects. The largest suspect, it was the Bureau of Reclamation. So the Bureau of Reclamation moved west. Then they start building all these reservoirs. And at the beginning, actually, no one wanted the Bureau of Reclamation. The Congress didn't want the Bureau of Reclamation because they thought it would be a drain of money, which it was. Uh, but until the representatives, the senators, start thinking like, oh my God, if I can bring one of these projects to my community, I'm gonna get a lot of votes. And that's how people start actually signing into all these different US Bureau of Reclamation projects. And no, I actually want my district or this project to go to my district and so on. So that happened there. Very soon, imagine that you are providing water and doing all this infrastructure, reservoirs, canals, to grow alfalfa or wheat. That is extremely cheap. You have a very high capital investment for growing cheap food. So it didn't pencil out. So they were saying like, oh my God, okay, so I mean, in theory, we should put projects that will be economically feasible or that will, well, actually, I think I'm looking more for the votes rather than looking for the, and I mean, I want to get reelected. So um, basically what happened is that they start building a what is called cash dams. So dams that they were not supposed to be there, but because the projects were not economically feasible, they start putting hydropower turbines. So they can actually sell energy, and that will subsidize growing again wheat, alfalfa, corn. These these cash flow dams, these cash dams, they were basically used, and now we have it all over the states, um, generating electricity for subsidizing projects that they were actually impeding certain the good habitat that we have for fish, that we have for riparian vegetation, and so on. It has been impeded because of that. And in some places, they have actually created a water quality issue. We are, I think, in some parts of California, we have decommissioned, we have got rid of two dams, one in Carmel, and the other one we want to do it in Iron Dam. And I'm thinking that it might be likely to also happen in the Eel River. Why is that? Because these dams that they were put in there to provide some dollars, the projects have been already paid. So the farmers that were there already paid that. Um, and it is very marginal, the amount of energy that you're producing for all the relicensing and operation that we have now. Something also that as I was thinking here is something for you to discuss, or that we can discuss, is that hydropower dams, they are not that green. I will say that they are greenish, but not green. Um, and that will be because pretty much they having an impact on the environment. And I can explain you that. So fast forward, the Bureau of Reclamation building all of this. Uh, if you look at the uh, who is the main, so what is the agency that construct most of the dams on the east? That's the Army Corps. The Army Corps are the ones that build most of the reservoirs on that side. Okay, they did it because we had a lot of floods in that side of the country. We have a lot of water, so all of a sudden they start thinking that they will be relegated for not having such an important role in the states. And they say like, oh my God, so the Bureau is building reservoirs right and left, and we're not, and we might be relegated as a second place. So guess what they did? They start building dams also in the west. Even better, because these dams have to be for flood protection. So actually, the farmers should not pay for the capital cost for the investment. So they were pretty much building dams for free and giving that water supply to farmers. If you look at below the Tuolumne Mogollon River, so Calaveras, Merced, and so on, except the San Joaquin River, Cahuí, Kings River, those are Army Corps of Engineers reservoirs that they are provide water to Fresno Irrigation District, to Laredo Irrigation District at no cost. And they were putting dams there just because they will be relegated. Later, it comes all these problems and like, oh, I think might be a good idea to actually build some hydropower in here. And, yeah, and it was an afterthought. Most of these hydropower stations, they were an afterthought. And that can be the same also in some parts of the east. Um, just also so you know, in the so in this water moving from the north to the south, we have the California Aqueduct and the Delta Mendota Canal. So two canals moving water south to the San Joaquin and also to Southern California. We park the water when there is extra amount of water, move water from the Sacramento into the Delta, and then pump that water into two canals. And as you're moving that water south, if no one can take it because it's winter and no one is using that much water, they have an off-stream reservoir. What does that mean? Imagine that you have a big bucket, like a huge bucket, on the side of the canal. Take that water from the canal, put it in that big bucket, and later you use it on summer. That is San Luis Reservoir. It took them, I think that was built in the 40s, 50s, until the 80, 85, they, and this is the state of California, they were thinking like, I'm pumping water up, but when I'm taking the water out, should I put a turbine and recover some of that energy? It took them like 30 years to figure this out. This part of the energy has been an afterthought. If you look at that documentary, you're gonna see it. We didn't thought the energy system as that. Okay, so that was a very fast forward of how we got here. Um, Again, I think technology wise, we are figuring things out. Something very similar that is happening with um, the energy sector, that is happening with the water sector, is we are dealing with the same, this kind of water supply, water demand, trying to match those two things. The advantage on our side is that we have reservoirs, we have water storages, and actually they were built, the largest one, they were built for us by Mother Nature. So look at your feet, and that groundwater, that aquifer that is under your feet, that's the largest reservoir. We have it there. It is there, and we have some space. And we built some other reservoirs. So I think that's one of the things. Something that I've seen in terms of water and energy is switching the demand, and I think that's something that many of you may have been working. So here we actually store the water and then deliver to your house. Pretty much the water that you receive in your house, most likely, it is a mixture between surface water from the Sacramento River and the big storage that we have under our feet, the groundwater here, and that's the valve. Um, Specifically in agriculture, let me share a couple of things on agriculture. We have also moved to systems that are high energy or that are energy intensive. So think about this. So we had furrow irrigation. We say like, well, actually that might not be such a good idea because we don't have that much water. And if we do drip irrigation, subsurface drip, or micro sprinklers, we can increase the yield. And if we increase the yield, we increase the money, we can sell more produce. That comes with a higher energy consumption. So drip irrigation, subsurf sprinklers, you need to pressurize it. So now we have an increase in the energy. There are people actually that are trying to match that supply and demand, but by basically with now this photovoltaic solar energy, trying to incentivize farmers now to move their energy demand or their irrigation towards the peak hours of the sun. This is what I'm telling you is idea from some guys in LB in Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. That
It's
they
Sam.
uh-huh.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
So quick question with that. So
Mhm.
like even with the saved pumping costs that come
Mhm.
with those more efficient
Mhm.
irrigation technologies, it still ends up being more energy expensive.
That is correct. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the basically the bottom line, Shant, is that um, how much more produce you're going to get, how much are you going to increase your crop yield, given that you're going to more sophisticated irrigation districts, irrigation systems. To be more specific, if you walk around and see a plot, an acre of tomatoes, you're not going to see irrigated through furrow. All of them now are pretty much subsurface drip irrigated. Why is that? Because they increased the yield, and the yield was increased by 30% to 40%. So you could get 30% more tomatoes out of an acre. And the bottom line is that that was a very good incentive for everyone to move into drip. Is they didn't want to save water, they wanted to get more money.
Yeah, but like you were saying that the energy cost of using drip irrigation is
It has
is
increased.
higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which makes sense because it's pressurized, but the
Mm.
but the decreased since you're pumping less water, that's less energy that's going into groundwater pumping. So I'm
Yes.
just wondering, like, does that which one of those is which one of
So
those is like on net higher energy costs?
so it is. So there are two things here, and this is also um, it is a paradox. So most of these irrigation systems, they want to be on demand. So at the flip of a switch, I want to get water at the flip of a switch, and that is through groundwater. Most of the time, some of them they have ponds, but most of the times it's through groundwater. Okay. Um, the lift of the water and the pressurization, in average, well, in the area that we are, Sacramento, it may be $100 to $150 per acre foot. In again in the tomatoes, so is that much or is that few? In a tomatoes, you spend about 2 feet and a half. So from $250, $200, $250, that is the cost of energy on that specific acre. Okay, you are I don't know what is the price per pound, but you by that 30% or 40% increase in your crop yield, you might be getting, I don't know, $4,000, $6,000 more per acre. So the increase in the cost of energy, yeah, it's 250. It's way more what they are getting from their increasing crop yield, and that's what they are going there. Before with surface, pretty much they have the water from the canal. They have these turnouts or wells or pumps that they were literally bringing water from the canal into the plot. That will be in the order of per acre, not more than $60, not more than $70 at most. So yeah, the increase where now we are in 250 from 60, 70. I know it's $180, but the increase in the yield, that's what is happening. Something that you'll find, the paradox that I was planning to mention, is that we have users now that they actually are not taking surface water. And they are not taking surface water because they have their system pressurized. So in order for taking that water, you need to get a pump where actually you can take that water and pressurize it. Otherwise, you will have to do furrow irrigation. People are also there. We have farmers doing both. So that will be one thing that I wanted to discuss in terms of agriculture. The other one, really quick, is the, not sure how many of you are aware of, but we have a deep problem of land subsidence in California. Um, and I mean, again, I'll send you the quintessential picture of what happened in California with the land subsidence. Okay, yeah. So
You can share a screen if you want to, but or you can send it.
yeah, so that one will be there. No, let me actually, yeah, I'll do that for a bit. Whew. So basically, what you're seeing there is the quintessential picture of land subsidence. For many of you, let me just show you or explain this. So the land in 1925 it was here, and then in 1955 this piece of land it was here, and then in 1977 it was here. So you take a lot of groundwater, you keep that soil empty or now with air, and the soil starts compacting because you extract that water out of the soil, so there is nothing to hold it. You get compacted. Yep, those are 50 years. The land is sinking. Since that era, since 1920s, in the 19 and why 1925 or the 1920s, because that was when the diesel pump was invented or was economically available. They start overdrafting. They start, not all, just a few of them. Very few farmers start taking more water from the ground that they actually, it was replenished by rain. So that's why the land keeps sinking. It took 100 years to actually pass a law that can prevent this, that can prevent a farmer to overdraft groundwater. This is serious. It took 100 years from 1914 to 2014. And still, again, in some parts of California, you can have an electric vehicle. God forbid that you put a water meter in a well. That's bonkers. So we are going to finally solve this problem, the physical problem, not the social problem, by basically reducing the amount of water taken from the ground. Because of that, there will be a lot of land that will be fallow, that will not be, is not going to be used to grow any more food. Why? Because originally it was a desert. And secondly, we don't have enough water. The crops that we're growing, there are some of them that are very thirsty. People are thinking actually to install solar photovoltaics in those fallow lands. And something that it has been, so it is good. We can have now energy. Will be some energy produced. That actually will not represent jobs or revenue for the local community if the local community does not organize and actually develop their own projects. It will be for, I don't know if it's going to be PG&E or Sun Power or Solar City or you name it, where they will actually go buy the land, get the energy, get the revenue, and those people that were working in there will not have funds. That's something that it has happened in some other parts in the Central Valley, where they say like, oh, never mind, we can can still produce, or we can still be economically productive. Sure, but that will be for the few, and that's something that Omar was mentioning. I think in terms of energy, we have had some people outside, and 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 that has been an issue. How many of you? There is something that is called green grid. I think so. Grid alternatives. Have you heard about grid alternatives?
Yeah.
Yes, that's really cool. I've gone through some of their trainings to install. That is something that I think they are hitting on hell in terms of training woman, training people, getting people hands on their job. I think that's extremely important. We have to empower. There is no other way that we're gonna turn this around. I think it should be kind of what these guys are doing with these grid alternatives, kind of bottom up from the community, trying to train all these people and provide a tool so everyone can have an understanding of how to install a photovoltaic, and from the top down, which is this kind of ideas of let's move all the agriculture into the peak hours for solar and so on. So anyway,
Sam, can I ask a question real quick about
Sure.
grid alternatives specifically?
Mhm.
Have you seen a lot of influence of grid alternatives in the Central Valley, or have you known of any similar organizations that are trying to kind of correct the profiting that's been going on from renewable energy in the Central Valley?
no, no, I haven't seen it. And to be honest, they have also. I mean, I would like to have them more events, more training sessions. It will be like 3 or 4. In the high season, it might be 8 a month, but typically it's like 3 to 4 per month.
Okay,
And that is very sad. And you have to chase where you actually want to go there.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is Steve Schaefer. If I can make a couple of sort of big picture comments. And Sam, just to introduce myself, new to Student Energy, but I'm really impressed with all that they're doing, how they're bringing people together. I was the Director of Environmental Stewardship at the Department of Food and Agriculture from 2000 to 2008, did a lot on water and water policy. And that iconic photo that you showed of land subsidence, one that sort of took a hiatus because of the Central Valley project, but it reared its ugly head again recently, to a point where from satellite data, there was enough subsidence that actually tilted the Sierra Nevada mountains. Imperceptibly, but it did, and it wreaked some havoc with the water delivery systems, with the canals and what have you, and so it is an ongoing issue. I don't think full compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is required until 2025. And that was about, a 10-year development process and allowing the locals to come together and develop their own sort of plan. So as you stated, these things take time, but still, it all boils down to the short-term economics of the grower.
Yeah, that is correct.
So another couple of things related to energy as well. One, I don't know if you've talked about the hardening of demand. So the shifting from tomato and cotton and annual crops to almonds and grapevines, which require irrigation year after year after year. And so that's an important factor in terms of both energy and water supply and demand. The last point, there was a study I read, I don't know, it's about 2 years ago now, I think, out of Stanford, where they've done some geotechnical mapping, if you will, and they have found fossil groundwater supplies down at a depth of about 5,000 feet, which would be a 50 to 100-year supply of water for the Central Valley. So in my mind, and this isn't talked about very much, but something you young students should be thinking about is when and how will this aquifer be tapped into? And it's all a matter of energy and the economics of energy until that happens. You know, the growers, they're running their calculators and sharpening their pencils, and they thought Central Valley Project water was going to be too expensive, and it wasn't. They thought now drilling wells to 1,200 feet was going to be too expensive from the drilling costs and the energy pumping costs, and it isn't. So I just wanted to put a couple of those big picture ideas out there for you.
Yeah, and let me. So those are actually great ideas. Let me see here. This way. Okay, so what Stephen was mentioning is he's right. Let me be now even more painfully clear about what he's mentioning. So this legislation that will um, address this issue of land subsidence, it has to be in full compliance until 2040. So in 20 years, it has to be full compliance. The first milestone, the first checkpoint is in 5 years. So that's when actually we need to see a slow change. Why they did that, and for the folks that are in policy, some of you may know that I mean, when you're putting a politician on the hot spot and they want to do legislation, ideally the impacts will come once they have moved to a different year or they have secured the next political spot. So they actually thought about doing this until 2040, which is pretty sad. Okay, so the other thing that I do want to mention is that we are solving here we are solving the physical problem. Let me see if I can. So this is a commercial, but I think it's a good commercial. So this is our website, watermanagement.ucdavis.edu. In this part, we have something that is called a Cooperative Extension Hydrology 101. So these are videos, 3 to 5 minute videos. You can actually take a look at them and tell you good basic knowledge of hydrology and groundwater hydrology. In some of these, actually, I'm talking about Sigma, that regulation. So so that will be one comment. The other one that I want to mention in here, and this is perhaps something that Omar was speaking here. This problem here, so we're seeing the physics of, we are perceiving, monitoring the physics of the problem, okay? And we have an economic and social component of the problem that I don't think that regulation resolved or solved. Let me explain you why. As you are trying to, well, so you want to prevent people to do the overdraft of water. You want everyone to do not take more water than is replenished. Good. And you're gonna measure in by measuring the water levels. There are already farmers that went, what Steve was mentioning. They have gone, I think, 3,000, 4,000 feet in the ground. So they have wells that are about a kilometer down there, and this is done in other parts of the world, so it's not. So they have gone down there, 3,000 feet. And if they put a regulation, I mean, they will be bad. Don't get me wrong, but they still have the deepest straw in the pool. The ones that are the shallow straw in the groundwater is small farmers. Small farmers or farmers that are reduce, and they are trying to sell this more boutique, either organic, in these places where they can actually get along. And they are the more sustainable. They are the ones that do not do monocultures, that they do not do only one crop to get it. These guys are the ones that have the shallowest well. And if when we are actually saying like, okay, everyone is in overdraft, all the ones that here we are in the Zoom call, all of us, we have think that all of us we are users in this basin. Well, we're gonna cut the water use on all of us evenly, 20%. Well, let's actually go 30%. 30% on all of us, because we were over extracted. The big users can take a 30% reduction. They can adjust their acreage. Imagine that you take 30% of the water of the guys that are barely surviving, or that they are making it, breaking even every other year. So we're going to solve the problem. I think in some cases we're going to take the small farmers, we're going to take them out. And people will decide even that what they will do is actually do not grow anything. Whatever was the portion that they get out of their land, they're going to sell that water and see what else can they do. And we're taking jobs out of it, and the jobs of the guys that are in a disadvantaged community, the low income jobs, the ones that right now are keeping our food coming, those are the ones that we're trying to get rid of, or those are the ones that these might will get rid of. So that's something that with Omar we have a lot of discussions about, not seeing this as solving the specific physical problem, and trying to solve also looking at the socials. The economics in here, I mean, the bottom line is that some of these folks, the ones that have the largest operations, they will go what we're doing it. They will reduce. Some of them, they may install solar energy, and they will start selling it. So the rich got richer. Ouch. This one, it is a wicked problem. That's something that I'm still kind of thinking about it. I don't have a solution. I can see the problem there. Let me just tell you one other one, and this will be related with the environment. Okay. We have actually it might be here. Actually, I found two ways how to do this. Okay. This will be another commercial. eflows.ucdavis.edu. eFlows for environmental flows. Okay. And basically, what is going on here is this is our beauty state of California. Okay, our beautiful state. And naturally, the state has 3 fingerprints. If we think about this in terms of water or hydrology. So it has the snow melt fingerprint, and I'll show you how that one is. We can actually see this guy here. This is time, and this is flow, water in a river. October, November, December, that river will have not that much water. Snow will start melting, and the river will start increasing its flow. The snow is gone, the flow will recede. And the next year, again, and the next year, again. So that's one fingerprint. The second fingerprint is this one here. Okay, so this part of the state, pretty much it has a rainfall runoff response. So it rains, it will have some flow or some water in the stream. It doesn't rain, it will reside. It rains, so it has this flash here. And then if these two have a baby, then we're gonna have something like this, which is some of the flashiness of the rains and the hump of the snow recession. Okay, this one, what I'm telling you, it took us like 5 years to figure this out. But what I wanted to tell you is that a lot of this, so when we're thinking about how to improve the environment, or what lives in the water and what lives around the river corridor, one good clue, one good hint is how it naturally evolved. What was the natural signature? So this was one natural signature that all the species that they adapted to it, that they migrated, spawning, diet, have enough water to actually be sustained and be in different pools and so on. And we have modified, we have altered this much. This is one of the also quintessential pictures of the water system that I was talking. Every triangle here is a reservoir. Every line in here, it's an aqueduct, it's a pipeline moving water. This from Shasta to the Delta, the Sacramento River, you may think it's a river, but it's not a river. It really is not a river. It's just moving water from Shasta to the Delta. It is a canal that is massive. It has a camouflage of a river, but it's not a river. So we have altered the system because we are here and we're using water, and that's not bad. Something that it has happened is that because we didn't, the same like the energy, it was an afterthought, like, oh man, we need to protect the environment. Now we're paying a lot of dollars to protect the environment, like a lot. You'll be surprised. The Salton Sea, it is about $200 to $250. Keep water in here. $250 per white crane per night. So you have a flying a white crane, it lands in here. The money that we're investing here for the number of white cranes that get in there for the number of days is about $250. Just to give you an idea that we're paying pretty much a hotel, the amount of a hotel for a white crane. It is massive. The same in the Delta and on all the different pumps. Not sure. So by now also you should know that California, there is nothing natural in California. So all the California that you're seeing, except Muir Woods and some parts of the national parks, except Yosemite, that's the only portion that is natural. The rest, you're seeing California version 2 or version 3. Lake Tahoe, guys, really, if you're going to Lake Tahoe, those are really 150, 180 trees, pure trees, 3-year-olds. They are not native there. So we have modified it. We're paying a lot actually for not following or not altering all this in terms of salaries, in terms of lawsuits, and so on.
Just one quick comment, if I may. One quick comment, if I may. That $250 per night for a white crane. I mean, I get the point, but there are other reasons and benefits that money is being spent on the Salton Sea. It's not just for white cranes.
No, that is correct.
Okay. That is, I don't want to give these students the wrong impression.
No, that is so perhaps. So we've been addressing this at a piecemeal, and I think that is a problem. So the Endangered Species Act look at sustained habitat for a given species rather than looking at the entire ecosystem. Yes, we're keeping, or if we just only look at the white crane, it will be very expensive. The reality is the white crane is one of the species indicators that is providing good, a good indicator, a good metric for the rest. So in order to kind of address this, we are developing this a very large project to try to determine environmental flows throughout the state. It is extremely large. So on every 200-meter stream, in every 600 feet length of the river, we're trying to determine those environmental flows. The concept is this: do not provide all the water, so kind of mimic what was the natural pattern, which is, I show you this. This is a kind of a mixed one, snow melt and rain, but provide some of these flow signatures that are very similar to what used to be naturally. So I will leave it like that.
I
I
just
think
want to
those. Uh-huh.
clarify. So that the image we're just talking about, the functional flows, that is for water releases from dams, correct?
And or it can be also water that you should leave in the stream in rivers that have not been dammed, which is pretty much we have a small parts of the Eel River, the Mad River, Scott River, and all the tributaries. We have many tributaries without dams, so it's to protect that one.
Sam, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So in the next few decades, Sierra snowpack is obviously going to go downhill, going to decrease quite a bit. How exactly is that going to affect both surface water and groundwater for agriculture?
Okay. So I'm not sure if you're gonna get this joke, but we're gonna call the Sierra Nevada only Sierra, so it's not gonna be longer Nevada. In Spanish, Nevada is snow, so it's not gonna be snow in the Sierra. So, you know, I can see different um, working out around the clock. Okay, so we have seen what can happen during the rainy season snow, which is basically that you have a lot of water, and that water you have to release it for flood protection. That's basically what. So the reservoirs on those months, we have to keep them low. So we have a big storm, we can catch it and actually not flood. In that case, it will be Oroville, Chico, Sacramento, um, Yuba City, Marysville. Sacramento is being flooded 3 times. And this is the third iteration of Sacramento. So we will have to release more of that water. There is people actually doing agricultural groundwater banking. So all that water that is coming for floods, releasing it, moving it into the fields during winter, mostly actually almonds, wine grapes, and alfalfa. Why those? Because you apply very few pesticides on some of those, and let that water sink in, recharge the aquifers. So that is one, and that is the cheapest. The second one, we have something that is called, and that one, if you, um, so these are some of the places that are in green that we know that it are good conditions for recharging. So we do have a good understanding of where can we do this. The next one, so this is the cheapest, okay? Then something like this. This is how it will look. Yep. So this is a recharge pond. Basically, a piece of land that is mostly unused for many years, but when you have a lot of water in the rivers, there are pumps in the rivers we have paid for that move the water into the pond and recharge the aquifer. And this might be 15 feet, 20 feet. Put that water, let it sink. That is the second one. We're going to be doing a recharge with what is called dry wells. So You have similar like here a pond, and then you put a hole in there. That is a well. It has a case. Rather than in that well taking water out, you use that as a conduit to put it in without pressurizing it. And then the most expensive one is actually have a pump, take that water and pressurize it, push it into the well, and that will require energy. That is the most expensive. So what I told you is kind of that is for actually not letting that when the Sierra Nevada is only Sierra, we're gonna take that rainwater, and that's how we're planning to put it down there. Reservoirs are very difficult. Well, not difficult. All the good spots are gone. I think these are way cheaper than the others. So that will be for this kind of flash floods. For the I was telling you that we were gonna be working around the clock, because when we don't have any floods, when we don't have any snow, basically what we're going to do is do these deficit irrigations. So torturing the plants on purpose. So if what I was telling you, 2.5 feet of water for or 3 feet for tomatoes, at certain periods of the year, in early May, April, you can give less water than the plant needs. You torture it, it will still produce good crop yield, but it will be fine. So those are some water conservation and so on. Let me see if I have. I can show you how looks the Sierra Nevada. Oh, I found it. Let me see. I think it should be this one. So this will be the Sierra Nevada without. Oh, here. Also, if. Oh, yeah. Can you see it? No, you're not seeing it. I think you can see it. Can you see the screen?
It's black. It's all black. We see the word
Oh, yeah.
snowpack.
I know.
Okay.
Sorry. So this is the first year when I came to interview. So I was flying in for interviewing to Davis. And this is how I see the Sierra. This is April 1st, and it's not because it's Fool's Day. It's because that is supposed to be the last, when you already have the last snow event on the Sierras. So we always look for the snow in April Fool. So this was a wet year. This will be 2012. So this is the first year of the drought. This is the second year of the drought. This is the third year of the drought. This is the fourth year of the drought. So yeah, Jake, what you were asking about Sierra Nevada without Nevada, this is it. It really, that's how it looks. This is the first time that actually I saw California on its knees. You want to put California on its knees, take the water out of it. It took us 100 years, but we passed a legislation that it will change how we do. That's what it takes. This will be the last year of the drought. Now what you're going to see is the wettest year on record. When I say wettest is the last 100 years that we have, this is the wettest one. Yep, that was it. Oh, no, sorry. Yep, this was the wettest. This is the wettest compared to the third, fifth wettest. And that will go to what you were also mentioning, Jake. What that means is that we have more rain than snow. So it is, and it is warmer. So this is the wettest. Then we have another driest, and then another wet. And this year we are actually in a drought. So if we didn't have anything to worry about, here we go, going into a drought. I also call this that California has a bipolar disorder. It's either wet or dry, but it doesn't stay in the middle. So yeah, I think what Jake, perhaps what I think we have the tools, Jake. I don't think that is not unseen. We're thinking of the tools. The thing that I think we need to look a little bit more is in have this kind of social component or this economic component that it will make it accessible for everyone. I haven't mentioned this, but people in this area, in the Central Valley, Tulare, on this part, they have very poor access to clean water. 2020, we have people drinking water with fertilizer. In the sixth, we were a country in the sixth economy of the world. Well, we're gonna end up now in the 9th, 10th. You know, that's always California also moody on that one. Anyway.
Professor, I have a sort of a broader question, because a lot of us here are students who are likely going to go into positions where we'll have some impact as both scientists and policy people. So you worked on a few projects as a scientist to sort of influence how policy should be shaped. Kind of two notable ones that I remember. You worked in the Rio Grande to work on work between Texas and Mexico to have for water agreements. That didn't go so well. But then you also worked in Central California, and that was substantially more successful. Would you be able to talk for a few minutes about that, how you played a role as a scientist to move legislation and sort of what were the big issues that sort of drove these problems and why they succeeded or failed?
Yeah, I think that's a very good. Let me. Okay, so let me actually tell you really quick here. There are a couple of. Oh man, let me see if I can get this one really quick. Okay, no. It is worth the waiting. You're gonna believe me. Got it. Okay, so I was looking actually for my cheat sheet, but really the main point here is understanding blah 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 blah. This part here. So the bottom line here is that not a lot of people tell you this, but so we as a scientist, okay, so think that you're in a decision-making process. So think that there is either an agency or a group of people or someone that wants to make a decision. In some cases, what they want to do is either build a reservoir, put more wells, save water, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You have to think in two different kind of dimensions. So the first dimension is how certain you are of the things that this decision entails. So if I build a dam and I do all the math and I know how much water it is, will I be able to pencil out things? That is the technical part. The second one is if there is consensus about some of the decisions. Okay. So we think that we can be only pure scientists, so we can just kind of publish papers and then wait that someone else will actually pick our paper and say like, oh my God, someone wrote this paper, I can make a decision. Well, that is very unlikely to happen. That's the reality. Okay. The second one is that sometimes on the things that you have is you might be certain of what are the things that can happen. Some of those is what we're experiencing. Go to quarantine, and that was the certainty that we're gonna stop the spread, and it's happening slowly but surely. So that's being this science arbiter. If someone asks a virologist or someone, it will go and tell you like, well, you know, if you do this, it will spread it out, and I'm certain of it. Okay. There are times when you're not that certain about the outcome. Okay. Sometimes you want to reduce the scope of the choices. The easiest way of thinking about this is you know that a fabric is throwing, or it has their sewer is going into the river and is the one that is polluted, and it's creating all these problems downstream for healthy. You can actually be an advocate. You can actually go with the guys that are suing the company and say like, hey, I mean, those guys are doing it. Our friend here on the USGS, he actually at the end of his career he regretted not being that such an advocate of what he was saying. He had all the measurements and he was recording 3-5 inches per year going down, and he thought that by publishing these people will stop. By the end of his career, some of his last comment it was like, I should have been a more advocate because I couldn't stop this, and guess and look where we are. And the last, so that will be this kind of issue advocate. The last one is that when you don't have the uncertainty and people are still, and the decision makers are not sure what they want to decide, you can kind of provide a range of solutions. This, basically, having this in the back of my pocket, help me actually every time that I step into some of these meetings to actually make things move. Because sometimes I can say like, that is not true. What you're saying here is actually not a fact, and I can actually show you the facts. And that one I can be this kind of issue advocate, or I can be a science arbiter when someone tells me like, hey, can we save water if we do this, and that, and how much? Yeah, and I pencil out. Those are contentious. Hey, is it better option A, B, or C? Actually, like, I don't know, but here are the solutions. So knowing when to switch from a honest broker to an issue advocate to a pure scientist to a science arbiter, that has made all the change in order actually for me as a scientist being able to provide information. So that will be that, Omar. This is basically kind of, don't think that you as a scientist have to respond as a scientist. There are many roles that we can do. I think that's it. Okay, one last one. This is and this also helps me sometime in terms of when to pick a fight. Okay, and this is also very important for you if you have a significant other or not. This will be important for you to. So imagine that this is the responsibility or the importance for you. So on this guy, this is your interest. Okay, and on this side is other people interest. Okay, so if you have a low interest and the other people have a low interest, and this is also in terms of institutions, when you're working with institutions, I mean, just avoid the conversation, avoid wasting time in this, really. So if you have low interest, and this is mostly when you're kind of dealing in collaborating with other institutions or with other people, if you have low interest in both of them, avoid it. Who cares? If you have high interest and you realize that the other institution, it may have a low interest, go for it, compete, get it. That is also very useful with institutions when they are thinking of how to implement policies. Sometimes they have a lot of responsibility and the others don't. These institutions say, I will go for it. Who cares? If the other institution or the other person has a high interest and you have low interest, just don't get in their way, accommodate. Just kind of move out, leave it there. If the two institutions or if the two people have high interest, collaborate. And then in the middle, compromise. A lot of people tend to compromise, or is their natural instinct. And let me compromise. Well, sometimes you don't have to. I will say about 150, 200 decision makers that I know. About 5 to 10% have the natural instinct to do this. The other ones, either they have a lot of ego and they always want to compete. When they get in the room, what they want to say, or a lot of people may look for compromise. Something that so for instance with Obama, something that I was thinking is that if it gets to, he actually said, if it gets to my desk, it's because no one else could solve it. This is a wicked problem. And he looked into this stage. So anyway, this is good when you are kind of thinking with your significant other, this helps.
Alrighty. On that excellent relationship advice, I think we will leave it there. If I is it alright to give out your email address, Sam?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, by all means. And I put it I can also send you Jake. So for instance, that PBS, I think it will expire for watching that freely in a week or so. There is also another one that is called with City, and that one is also one town in close to Shasta that private industry has taken their water rights. So you want to see how social injustice looks. That will be good. I'll send you some of those. I also have the quintessential 1950 description of the Central Valley Project, and that will be the grandiose. We're gonna build this, and we're gonna do that, and all this water will be put in here. Anyway, you can see the different perspectives. Anyway, yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case you're running out of Netflix shows, I can provide you more.
Okay.
Hey, take care. Good talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sam.